China is helping the Russian Federation to create Oreshnik. This is reported by The Telegraph. And here, I think it's worth figuring out just how clickbait this story is and whether it might be exaggerated. What does it even mean that China is helping to create Oreshnik? Oreshnik has already been created. Oreshnik is a Soviet development. Let's talk about this in a bit more detail. And most importantly, how many of these Oreshniks is China actually able to help create, right? It's simply about production. So, what does the Telegraph article say about China and the Russian Federation about this cooperation? The production of Oreshnik has been set up at the Votkinsk plant, which is under sanctions. Intelligence has identified Chinese machines and rotating mechanisms there, which are necessary for high-precision metalworking and the creation of warheads. So the first thing is the machines, right? To assemble high-precision weapons, China supplied microchips and memory boards worth almost $5 billion to the Russian Federation. This is a significant development. Chinese microchips are in huge demand all over the world, including in the United States of America. And here comes a logical puzzle. How can these chips end up in the Russian Federation? In washing machines, for example, that's one channel, or through Kazakhstan, or through Belarus, or even as secondary use goods via the European Union. All of this, of course, does happen, but to the tune of $5 billion, friends, $5 billion. Not all of this, of course, is used in the production of the Oreshnik, but still, according to experts, Chinese machines cause Ukraine much more harm than millions of ordinary artillery shells, since they allow Russia to be self-sufficient in the production of missile weaponry. Chips are okay. You see, even the reputable Telegraph publication writes that these autonomous machines, now, that is truly a massive and overwhelming problem. A bit more detail, right? What else exactly can be supplied and what significantly helps the Russian Federation assemble those very Oreshniks? So among the key items, China sends various types of bearings to the Russian Federation through different channels worth $130 million. These bearings withstand loads, reduce friction, and ensure movement, making them indispensable for the production of aircraft, vehicles, and other things, presumably also missiles. China also supplies key testing instruments such as multimeters and oscilloscopes. In particular, these are used to check the efficiency and operational condition of weapons and microelectronics. For example, with their help, one can make sure that electronic warfare systems and radars are functioning as they should, and that the microchips in drones are processing, storing, and transmitting the collected data. Without access, writes the Telegraph, to these Chinese machines, bearings, and other such components, as well as without Russia's access to the Chinese market economy and China as a transit link for many of these technologies, it would be extremely difficult for Russia to continue the war. This is stated by Michael Kaufman, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment, for The Telegraph. Russia's dependence on China has increased significantly over the past 2 years, it is noted. Imports from China are so important for Russia because the equipment at many Russian factories is outdated and does not allow for the rapid and high-quality production of this military equipment, says another researcher from another institute, specifically the British Royal United Services Institute. That's the story. Now let's talk about whether this is exaggerated or not. How many Oreshnik drones does the Russian Federation actually produce, and how many could it potentially produce? Our foreign intelligence is working excellently, and there was recently a report specifically about the Oreshnik drones. Mr. Lugovsky, the first deputy head of the Foreign Intelligence Service. Here he is in this photo. He stated that Russia currently has no more than 3 or 4 Oreshnik missiles, and this year plans to launch them into mass production. That is, mass production which it does not yet have. It took 2 years to prepare for this mass production. Well, that's how it is. So what is actually flying towards Ukraine right now when we read the news and see all this scrap metal that is considered to be the Oreshnik? After the strike near Lviv, the CNN publication, do you remember the material is being referenced? Do you remember this very video? And American journalists were allowed access to these collected pieces of physical evidence related to the missile, which presumably, and now it has been definitively proven, was an Oreshnik and was used against Ukrainian territory. What does CNN talk about in this material? The Oreshnik missile, which you see here now, is assembled from outdated Soviet technologies and is not a breakthrough development. So there are two questions. Either the Chinese machines are not yet properly set up, right, with the bearings that Telegraph writes about, or Telegraph is just chasing a sensation. Because what has just appeared on air, what is now lying as evidence on the territory of secret facilities in Ukraine and is being studied and has even been shown to the whole world by CNN, is not the technological weapon that the Telegraph writes about. In the missile debris found after the strike on Dnipro in 2024, vacuum tubes from Soviet times and mechanical gyroscopes were discovered. The guidance system is analog, not digital. Experts joke that Yuri Gagarin himself could have flown to the moon with such a gyroscope. Some of the components in the system are marked as being from 2018. Most likely they were simply repurposed from old projects. The warhead splits into 6 submunitions, yes, but during the strike near Lviv on January 9th, malfunctions and poor accuracy were recorded. Not all elements reached the ground. These are the facts reported by CNN correspondents. According to Ukrainian intelligence estimates, the missile does not contain explosives and hits its target solely due to its speed and mass, although in the final stage, it can exceed 11 Mach. That's approximately 14,000 kilometers per hour. Therefore, of course, the recent reports regarding the direct involvement of the People's Republic of China in helping to produce the Oreshnik missiles sounds extremely impressive, deeply threatening, and naturally everyone will be compelled to read about it. But the greatest threat is still the ordinary machines that are used to fine-tune and make the rhythmic production of military equipment more precise. Any military equipment, not just the Oreshniks. And this is a huge problem. China, which is in fact helping Putin to wage war in Ukraine, is not against Ukraine, by the way. Well, I mean, China is not against Ukraine, but it is helping Russia to fight, and Russia is fighting against Ukraine. Otherwise, if you put it this way, the point I just made is quite controversial, you understand? Otherwise, the Canadian government wouldn't be signing huge deals with either China or India right now, you see? Do you see what I mean? What is the vision over there in Beijing? We help the Russians and the Russians do whatever they want. This is what needs to change. And then the 3 or 4 Oreshnik missiles that the Russian Federation currently has will remain just 3 or 4 Oreshnik missiles, and there won't be any mass production. That's the point.